This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we take a look at some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. We also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 19th of January 2022, and I am AX.
I am Tuam.
And I am JM. In case you missed the headlines this morning, here they are in the Daily Nation. Uhuru cracks the whip. In the Standard, Uhuru, Raila's last bullet to save BBI. In the Star, Paul, Ruto keeps lead as Raila reduces gap. Raila reduces gap. Take note of that. Yeah?
Mind the gap.
Mind the gap.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking. We've been in London together.
Yes,
We've lived in London together. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
In the People Daily. Legal battle to save BBI starts. Yes, but why don't you kick us off first, to
Now today we will tell William Ruto a story. It is a story about former Ghanaian President Jerry Rawlings. Rawlings was permanently irritated. One day, his vice president started talking nyoko during a cabinet meeting.
Okay.
Irritated by this, Rawlings stood up and beat him up thoroughly.
No.
Angered by the beating, the vice president drove to the police station and reported the president. The officer at the OB desk told the VP to write a statement and go home and nurse his injuries. Later on that afternoon, the officer who recorded the statement was promoted. Guess why? Because as soon as the VP wrote the statement, he sent it ASAP to Jerry Rawlings. What's the point of my story? William Ruto can go report to the state or to the United States. He can go report to the European Union.
Yep. He
can go report to the Brits and ICC. But they will do nothing. And they will do nothing because they simply don't believe Ruto. Who would believe a man who's accused of burning 37 women and children in a church in Kiamba?
Oh my goodness.
Who would believe a man who has been accused by none other than the ICC of being responsible of killing Kikuyus in the hundreds?
Yep.
Who would believe a whole deputy president who has been charged with all manner of offenses, from stealing a forest to fraudulently obtaining 100 acres of Matesh's land? Who would believe a man who supposedly had the title deed to Processional Way next to State House?
My, oh my.
Who would believe a man who's been accused of harboring terrorists?
Aye.
The record of William Ruto is enough to have the ICC president laugh while rolling on the floor at that yellow and green letter offered by those hustler bandits. But I have another thought. Why would Ruto think that violence is not part of the state's TOR? In fact, we want to ask Kenya's finest plant scientist if he has read Max Weber's Politics as a Vocation. Max teaches us that the state is a form of human community that successfully lays claim to the monopoly of legitimate physical violence within a particular territory. In some, the state has monopoly of violence. It is therefore not absurd if there is state violence. And state violence here means if one tries to steal a primary school land, the state will use its monopoly of violence.
Oh, yes.
If one tries again to incite violence in the Rift Valley, the state will Russia them. If one tries to ban women and children again in Kiamba, the state will chop them and take them back to ICC.
My word.
Therefore, Chief Hustler, bring it on. Karim Khan is waiting.
You know what that reminds me of? Is this effect, it's a thing we do in Moranga. You go like this.
Yes.
When you're perspirating, you go like this, you go like this. Wow, your script.
Wow.
That was lit.
Wow.
That was lit.
Okay.
Take us off, AX.
No worries. So,
Wow.
Mr. Ruto, it is too soon for you to be president. You, like the men before you, must wait your turn. Why? Because, and according to Professor Mutai Nguni, it takes a minimum of 10 years to become president. No one wins on the first try. It took Mzee Jomo 17 years from his ascension to the presidency of Kenyan African Union in 1947 to his ascension to the president of our republic in 1964. It took Moi 23 years, Kibaki 42 years, and Uhuru 16 years.
Yes.
Even Raila served his minimum of 10 years before he will ascend to the presidency in 2022. What is my point here? You have not yet served your time.
Yes.
Each of these men not only spent decades preparing themselves for the presidency, each of them spent years in the political wilderness learning from the opposition before they ascended to power. Jomo was arrested, Moi's political party did not survive independence, and both Kibaki and Uhuru served as leaders of the opposition. And you know what Raila has been through. Meanwhile, you, Mr. Ruto, have been suckling at the juicy teat of government from the beginning of your political career. And you have never gone hungry a day in your life. And it shows, Mr. Ruto. It shows. Mr. Ruto, you had your... The soft life chose him. He did not choose the soft life. Mr. Ruto, you had your opportunity to become leader of the opposition. BBI would have made you leader of the opposition. And yet you opposed the very thing that would have made you president. Mr. Ruto, it is not yet your time. And as the good book says, good things come to those who wait. Good luck in 2032.
Lit. Okay,
Right.
now I'd like to just take us back on a tangent. On Monday's episode, Ms. K announced the 4-hole shortlist of Kikuyu running mates for Raila Odinga. Lee Kinyanjui was number 1, Mutahi Kagwe, Martha Karua, and Peter Kenneth. But these candidates, I must say, are suffering from an electability deficit.
Okay.
Electability is about projecting personal characteristics that enable the public to envision the candidate as a president or as a deputy president.
Okay.
Yes.
Lee Kinyanjui comes across as a rational pair, a safe pair of hands.
Yes.
But he appears completely disinterested in national politics.
Yeah.
Mutahi Kagwe, a superb communicator, but also a bit too coy around leading Mount Kenya people.
True.
Martha Karua, she comes off as an elegant and decisive, tough talker with a track record of performance. But she is playing too hard to get. Her Kirinyaganess is becoming a handicap. Peter Kenneth has resurfaced in central Kenya politics.
Yes.
He's making an effort to be visible. But again, he hasn't told Kenyans what he stands for, let alone what he wants in 2022. So, I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
What can our candidates do differently in the next 6 months? The rules of electability will demand 3 things of them. Be visible, speak with persuasion, and cultivate a healthy dose of madness.
Okay.
That's right,
Yes.
madness.
Yes.
Okay.
Visibility, because in politics, what is not seen is not counted.
Amen.
Precisely.
Persuadability, because if no one is persuaded, they won't do what you want them to do, obviously. And a healthy dose of madness, because, well, politics is about being noticed, isn't it? And the way you get noticed is by doing some really stupid things.
Yes.
Like calling for a sex boycott. Or going on a hunger strike. Something that will jolt people into action. Memorability. Let me explain by way of a story about an incredibly successful Colombian professor turned politician named Antanas Mocas.
Okay.
In 1975, Antanas Mocas became professor of mathematics and philosophy at the National University of Colombia.
Right.
Okay.
Picture a guy like George Saitoti.
Okay.
Yeah, but with a lot more charisma. By 1993, he was president of the university. One day, he was trying to address the entire student body, but they wouldn't listen to him.
Yeah.
As he stood on the stage, they shouted and heckled and ignored him.
Yes.
Then Mocas remembered a concept coined by a fellow professor, the French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu.
Yes.
Years earlier, Bourdieu had theorized on the role of symbolic violence, like the violence that was perpetuated on the Wanjigi yesterday.
Yes.
The role of symbolic violence on the public psyche.
Yes.
In politics, the equivalent of symbolic violence is creative disruption.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's what I'm referring to as the healthy dose of madness.
Yes.
So the Colombian professor decided to do something crazy. He walked to the center of the stage. At the very front, he undid his belt,
No.
lowered his trousers,
No.
lowered his underwear,
No.
lifted his shirt,
No.
and then turned around, bent over, and spread his bare butt cheeks at the rioting audience. Almost immediately, the chaos stopped and Marcus controlled the room. He was finally able to control the crowd. Obviously, that went well in that moment. But being an ultra mad move, he was forced to resign from his position. That's a shameful thing to do.
The university got rid of its best asset.
It did. But the upside is that that incident gave him national fame. It catapulted his political career. Marcus served the maximum 2 years as mayor between 1994 and 2000 in Bogota and accomplished a great many things through unconventional approaches. But that is another story for even another day. In sum, as I conclude, to our 4 deputy presidential contenders over the next 6 months, do recall the 3 cardinal principles for electability. Be visible, be persuasive, and cultivate a healthy dose of madness. But if you do nothing else, please embrace madness. Embrace it.
Oh my God.
Now,
He actually did that.
we have a 3-part criteria for analyzing and assessing the headlines: topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and thoughtful or just plain lazy. I'm inclined towards the Daily Nation. Uhuru is cracking the whip slowly but surely.
Absolutely.
I don't know what you guys think.
Absolutely. That's,
Yeah?
Daily
You
Nation.
concur?
Yeah, Daily
Okay,
Nation.
so I think we give the Daily Nation our winning headline. We can toss everything else there. And so on to the political pieces we call cartoons.
Yeah.
Why don't you kick us off, Ailey?
Sure. So today I'll be talking about the Daily Nation cartoon. It's on your screens right now, and what you are seeing are caricatures of Ruto and Raila on opposite sides of a riverbank. They are both fishing, but instead of fishing in the river, they're fishing from each other's baskets. And quite frankly, the messaging of this cartoon really irritates me because it's suggesting that both Ruto and Raila are taking each other's members, when in fact it is UDA members that are looking for Raila, not the other way around.
Yeah,
Get the
yeah.
message straight, Nation, please.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. So I think we toss that
Please.
cartoon for
Yeah,
being
it was
insincere
lazy as
to
well.
reality. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, let's take the standard.
The standard, you have Gado there, and it's 3 frames in the caricature of Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, with the journalist there asking questions. The first frame is Mr. Kagame, for the record, let's put everything on the table. Second frame, President Kagame reaches into his jacket pocket. Third frame, he puts a silencer, a gun with a silencer on the table, and the journalist seems bewildered. Now, I think it's fantastic cartoon, fantastic cartoon. A gun with a silence, I mean, what does that portray? What does that exemplify? Now, I wish that you guys would read a book called Do Not Disturb by Mikel Arong. Show how, I don't know how true it is, but I mean, it's scary, but at the same time, it's pretty amazing how Kagame keeps his state intact. You know, I mean, for a country that has lost over 1 million people to genocide, I don't think it's necessary to pull this kind of tactics because you don't want to lose another 1 million people. You know, and for how far Kagame and Rwanda has
justified.
I mean, I'm not saying it's great to pop guys and everything, but show me a country, any military democracy that has not pulled some stance to ensure the sanctity and the strength of the state is, is strong. And, you know, I mean,
Fear
so,
and
yes,
hope are
yes.
the greatest instruments in the governance of men.
Yes.
So said J.J. Rousseau.
Yes.
And you said something else to us, Ailey.
Yes, I just want to remind everyone that according to Mao Zedong, all political power comes from the barrel of a gun. Make with that what you will.
Yeah.
It is what it is. What if it's more?
Absolutely.
Dennis Itumbi.
Yes.
Eh?
We
It
hope
is
your
what
leg
it
is feeling better, Dennis.
It is what it is.
I mean-
Monopoly of violence, as you've said.
Yeah, I mean, look, how did the crown, how did the British Empire get itself across the world? It was through the barrel of a gun. How were we colonized?
yes.
Barrel
Because
of a
there was
gun.
a barrel of a gun.
They had the Maxim gun and we did not.
Precisely.
Speaking of guns, let me take us to the Star. We have a cartoon here full of guns. There's a presidential aspirant, Jimmy Wanjigi, in a building, watching from outside his house or his office that is being secured, controlled by a heavily armed group of masked policemen from ATPU. And on the other side of the image is a picture of Lamu, where armed guards as well, our soldiers have killed masses of people. Obviously, we must neutralize our opponents.
Yes.
Must neutralize.
Yes.
Enemies.
Neutralize. Yes.
Yeah. And that's what that is showing. So KDF is there at work doing what they know how to do best. And this frame is showing us that I think rather pessimistically, they're comparing the people doing what they're doing in Somalia to the people here with Jimmy Wanjigi.
Yeah.
I think it's
rather pessimistic
rather
of you,
lame.
Ozan. I mean,
yeah. Well, what do you think to it?
I think it's a rubbish cartoon by Ozan, honestly.
No, really.
I mean,
really,
the state must do what it needs to do to preserve itself. I mean, self-preservation is everything. And if one letters nyoko to the state, as I said, Max Weber says, the state has monopoly of violence.
Yes,
and
they do.
If it's
Max Weber. That's what he tells us.
Yeah.
The state is a criminal enterprise. That's what Max Weber says.
you mess with the state, you get fixed.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is what it is. This is a man from Moranga. I really sympathize with him right now. His father was a great man. He still is a great man. But hopefully we'll overcome this period. Yeah. Great. So we had a winning headline from the Daily Nation. This is who cracks the whip. We had a winning cartoon from what cartoon?
That was a standard.
Yeah,
The Standard.
Yes.
Standard. Winning cartoon. Absolutely. So toss the rest. So ladies and gents, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are also on your TV screens. Find us on Pang Free to Air, Go TV, and Star Times. Have a good evening.